The journey is conversations with ordinary people about stories of transformation and how we may have had setbacks in our life and how we persevered through those, how we've learned from those obstacles, and how they've maybe helped us on our path today. Well, welcome to the Journey. My name is Kevin Polky, and I am the host of the Journey. And we have a special guest with us today. Kirsten Edmunds is joining us today. And as I was kind of doing a little bit of background on you, you've been pretty involved within the community regarding mental health and suicide awareness. I didn't realize until I started doing some background that you are also involved with the Tommy Corral Foundation.
I am, yes.
Now,
But
are you on the board?
yes, I am. I'm on the board. Community outreach, and volunteer. But yeah, yep, I do it all. And then I'm also a mental health first aid instructor.
Really? All right. Awesome. Yeah. So, and I think you probably know this, but when I started Shatter Our Silence, unfortunately, Tommy, Xavier's son, was one of the three individuals that died as a result of suicide that kind of springboarded us. And Xavier was one of the first people I contacted when I said, well, we need to do something. We didn't really know what that was at the time. So,
Tommy was actually in my grade in school, in high school. My best friend was friends with him, and my brother-in-law was also best friends with him.
oh,
My grade. So that's what kind of shook me a little bit, and that's what actually forwarded me into reaching out to Xavier, just knowing that she had been through it and I was struggling at the time. So yeah,
now
kind
did you go to Rockford Christian or did you go to East?
of we went to Harlem. So
Oh,
he had,
Harlem.
yep, he was in Harlem for a while and then he had left.
Yep. Okay. Gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
So, Christian, as we begin, and maybe starting off on a little bit lighter note, what does Kristen do when she has an opportunity to have fun? When you're not working and you're not volunteering, what do you do for fun?
Well, honestly, like fun is my volunteering opportunity. Like I love working for TCMF and Xavier. Like that's something that is I enjoy, right? But I also am really big into playing sand volleyball. I've been playing sand volleyball for about 2 years. It's something gets me active, gets me moving. I love that. I love hanging out with my family and my friends. I'm a big bicycle rider. I run as well. I'm a runner. So, and I also love napping in my hammock outside.
Okay, perfect. And you said you graduated from Harlem, right?
Correct. Yep. 2013.
Okay. And were you when you were at Harlem, were you involved with any sports activity? You just mentioned a couple different sports. So what sports were you involved with?
I would played basketball and softball at Harlem.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Eh,
All years in my senior year for basketball, we won regionals actually.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. There's been a long history of strong girls sports at Harlem. So yes,
Yes. Yeah.
yes, very much so. Even back going way back, even before my time, I graduated from Harlem in the mid '80s. And there were some strong softball and volleyball teams there as well, basketball teams as well.
Yes. I
So
would love active, any kind of sports, anything being outside was just my go-to. So yeah.
perfect. And you're still in the Rockford area, obviously.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, perfect. So kind of tell us a little bit about your background of that as you mentioned, you were struggling a little bit, which led you to reach out to Xavier. So yeah, tell us a little bit about yeah, give us a little bit of idea what that was about.
Who I am, huh? So I would say my journey definitely started more towards like my sophomore year of high school. I think I always struggled with just depression, anxiety since I was younger. But I found out that I was adopted firstborn when I was 8 years old. And it became a struggle of like, who am I? Like, who is Kirsten? Just having that identity crisis, definitely all throughout the years. My sophomore year in high school, unfortunately, I was told by my biological mother that she wishes I wasn't here, which kind of led me into an eating disorder. I call it my ed, because my eating disorder is not who I am, and I've learned that over the years. But my eating disorder definitely caught wind really quick. My best friend at the time was like, "What's wrong? Like, why are you getting sick all the time?" I just told her that I was in and out of the bathroom, and I was like, wasn't holding anything down. And she was like, "Maybe you're just sick. Like, maybe something's wrong." I was dating a guy at the time through high school, and he looked at me and he was like, "You need to go to the doctor, and if you don't, I can't help you anymore." I went to the doctor. I told her that I was having stomach issues, and at that time, even all throughout high school, like mental health, depression, anything like that was not talked about. Like I didn't know what suicide even was. So that wasn't something. So, it was like, why was I throwing up? Why wasn't I wanting to eat? Was such a weird concept for everybody, even like the doctor back then. Um, but she was the one that was like, "You have an eating disorder." She brought my parents in. We had talked about it. And it started to spiral after that. I definitely had my struggles in and out. Like, I wanted to keep going to school. So I was told that I either have to get better and go to school, or I have to stay home and go to a doctor. So the first time I was told that, I definitely like tried to better myself. I did what I could to take care of myself. I did the self-care, which I didn't really know much back then, which is around 2012, 2013. And then I kind of went in and out of a spiral. I call it my roller coaster, like the ups and downs throughout life, right? But definitely my roller coaster was at a standstill at the bottom. I couldn't get myself out of a dark place. At one point, it was back in 2017. I was going to college. I was doing good. I came home for a summer and started getting sick. I was in and out of the emergency rooms to a point where the doctor asked my parents to step out of the room, and he looked at me and he said, "I know you know what's going on, and you are killing yourself." He was like, "You're getting to the point where," he said, "your organs are shutting down. You need more help. Um, what do you want me to do? Because I can tell your parents," or he said, "I can involuntarily like sign me into the psych ward." And I was like, "I want help." Went to Rogers Memorial in Economock, Wisconsin for it was 2 months inpatient treatment, and then about a month and a half of intensive outpatient treatment with a life coach. There, I learned so much. I definitely unfortunately, I was on death row at that point. Like, I was um, not able to do a lot. I actually spent my birthday in there. And that was definitely my turning point. I realized there, though, that it was of all people of all ages were there. They were younger than, so I had just turned 20. I turned 20 in there. I learned that people were struggling at all ages. We had people, 50 years old all the way down to 16. So there are people that weren't just my age at 20 struggling. There were people of all ages struggling with this. And I Joe Dirt is my movie. Joe Dirt is like, I quote it, keep on keeping on. Um, so I remember this one nurse who I still to this day, I thank her for saving my life every day. But she printed out a picture of Joe Dirt and put on the bottom, like, keep on keeping on. And that was definitely like my like step in the right direction to keep going, to keep moving. I don't think I knew how to really walk back then, as in like I felt I was like in the darkest place and I didn't think I was gonna come out. But for some reason, Joe Dirt was keep on keeping on, and I did. I graduated. We did like a little graduation ceremony for me to get out of the inpatient. I did that intensive outpatient, and it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I had family and I had my best friend come up and visit me though, and having that support, that tribe of people come to visit me really also helped me push forward to keep going. When I got out of Rogers and I came home back here to good old Rockford, Loves Park area, I still struggled, but that is where I met my amazing therapist, Sonia. And she helped me tremendously. I still quote her today, like, what would Sonia say? Um, but she I was when I left Rogers, they said that you have to find a therapist, and I had to have a therapist, a doctor's appointment set up right away. I found Sonia through my insurance and some great individuals that were like, she's an amazing woman. Um, and I saw her once to twice a week. I definitely don't think the word recovered. I was not recovered. People are like, "Oh, you're good now. You're better. You're out of treatment." I don't. Back then, I still think mental health was coming about, right? Mental health is being talked about, but people still didn't understand that with mental health, with an eating disorder, depression, anxiety, it doesn't just stop. Unfortunately, but fortunately, because it makes me stronger, I struggle with it every day. I battle with it every day. I don't struggle with it. I battle with it because I know that I have my witch's purse of things I can pull out and help me. But I still struggled. At one point, I actually had to go back to the hospital at Swedish American for a weekend. It was about 4 or 5 days. Um, and I unfortunately thought again I was not supposed to be here. Um, I just kept hearing an individual telling me, like, I don't want you here. I don't want you here. Um, and I, for some reason, believed her at that point. So I tried, and my best friend and Sonia were like, "No, you're meant to be here." So as much as I hated being in the hospital for 5 days, it was not the greatest thing, but it definitely helped me see a darker part, to know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. I definitely truly believe that there has to be dark for there to be light. Shatter that silence. Like, I love that. That's what I think of when I say that quote. But I started struggling, and I was working at Mad Pizza at the time, and Xavier had walked in, she ordered a pizza. And I remember looking at her and being like, this is when TCMF truly like started coming more involved in the community. And I knew who Tommy was. And I was like, you're Xavier. You do TCMF, right? And she was like, yeah. I reached out to her a couple of months after, just in a really dark place. We met for coffee, and I talked to her. She helped me see that I am worthy and I am enough. And that's kind of where my story with her started. I, um, I truly think that she helped me again find my feet on the ground and grounded me to know that my journey is going to help other people find their journey too.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So just let me kind of go back and ask you a couple questions. So you said throughout your life, you remember kind of having, symptoms of having, depression or feeling depressed and feeling anxious, throughout that. And then when you said a sophomore in high school, right, is when you found out that you were adopted. And talk about a critical time, right? I mean, we're everybody during those, late middle school, early high school years, we're kind of trying to figure out who we are. And even if we identify with a certain group, either athletics or the arts or something like that, we're still searching, right? We're still searching. And then all of a sudden you got thrown this particular, like, side, got, knocked sideways with this. And at that point, what do you remember thinking to yourself when you first got the information that you were adopted? Because you were going down this way, and then all of a sudden it's like, what? And then
I think something that pinpoints in my head is being like, that makes sense. As I grew up when I was younger, I was close with my family. I don't think it was I had strained relationships, right? But it was not like anything bad. But it I part of me like felt like a puzzle piece that was just not fitting. It was, like when you look at something that's very similar, like, oh, that's that piece, but it just didn't fit. I always felt like that around family and friends and everything else. I definitely like, I think to me, it's like that I was just that puzzle piece that was not fitting, but I was still part of it, right? Like I knew that I was supposed to be there. You know, there was some reason, some rhyme reason that they said, you need to be here. Here's this family. I just didn't feel like I fit in correctly. And I think that's where my identity crisis kind of really happened. I
Yeah.
definitely, being an athlete, like I kind of thought that's how I identified. I still am very active, right? Um, but I didn't know who I was supposed to be. I always questioned everything, and especially after finding that out, all that information, I questioned who I was supposed to be. I questioned what I was supposed to be doing. What was I supposed to be wearing? What was I supposed to be looking like? Who do I talk to? Who do I trust? The question why was huge in my chapter.
Sure.
Why and where? Like, where am I supposed to be and why am I here?
And then obviously when you do meet your biological mom, and then I mean, I can't even fathom, Kirsten, that well, no, number one, I can't fathom someone saying that. Number two, I mean, I'm very fortunate that I'm a father of two, and an uncle and I guess great uncle. And so to me, it's like one of the greatest gifts. And so I I don't know where someone must be at for them not only to feel that way, but to say that. I mean, I guess there's a lot of different reasons why someone may feel that way, but then to say it to someone else when they first meet them doesn't, it's hard for me to imagine, right? What that would be like.
It I actually like it's a very vivid memory in my brain. Like when I was told this, it was um through a text message. And to be honest, I'm almost as I've gotten older, I realized I'm more grateful that it was through that than face to face. I don't know how I would have reacted. But being told that like they wish I was never alive, they wish I was never here. Um, I finished a softball game. It was my end of my season. And I had my phone in my hand and we were doing the award ceremony and I was named like the funniest or the clumsiest girl on the team. And I looked down before I was named this given the award. I looked down at my phone and I was given this message. Um, and I remembered, I don't remember heartbreak. I don't remember tears. I don't remember like sadness. I don't remember any emotion except for feeling numb. I truly felt like at that moment I felt dead inside. Um, I almost feel like I felt her pain. And then my teammate goes, and the award for clumsiest, funniest teammate goes to Kirsten. I was like, I just look up and I remember like, I don't even think I can accept that, And I got up, I went and got the award, and then I went to my adoptive parents and I basically gave them my phone and I showed them. Um, and to be honest, I don't remember the rest of that day. I don't remember the game. I don't remember anything else except for just just the fact that it was said to me right before I was given an award by other people, by a team. It's I mean, as I'm even talking about it now, I feel like it's a little ironic because an individual, like to me it's an individual, right? I don't want to ever I whether she was adopt or blood to me or not, I look at her as an individual now because I had other individuals, my teammates at the time, my coach at the time, who were clapping for me. I mean, we're like, yes, clumsiest, coolest, funniest girl on the team, and I'm just like in my head, I'm like, again, I'm feeling like dead inside, but I'm like, it's just the two different types of people looking at me and seeing me, and it was like at that time being 15, 16 in the intertime. I think I'm 6. Yeah, I'm 16 at that time. um I believed the individual. I couldn't hear anything but that individual. But now as I'm older, I just turned 30, it's like I wish I would have listened to my teammates. I wish I would have listened to my coach. I wish I didn't pick up my phone, because I had that tribe of people like, no, you are good, you are great.
Yeah.
um, so that I feel like that was my turning point in life. I called it my sophomore slump for the longest time. I still do. um but there were so many good things, and I just right now saying this, like I don't think about that good, like that excitement, that like applause of people, like going like this as I'm getting the award. Like I didn't. that doesn't hit me until right now, like saying that. Like I was a 16-year-old just thinking that I had to find my identity, and meeting my biological mother, I thought, okay, I'm gonna figure out who I am. I'm gonna know what I'm supposed to be doing, where I'm at. Yeah, it was unfortunate, but it's part of my journey. It was, I think I talked to you last time, but it's like, I struggle with like, man, I'm so sick of going through things to feel stronger. But I remember you saying like, humble yourself, be about it. And it's like, I almost feel like if I did not hear those words, maybe I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And, I've come to terms with it. And I know that at the end of the day, there's a reason why I'm here today. And I'm still figuring it out, but there's a reason why I'm here. So,
You know, it when I do my the majority, if not all the talks now for the last couple of years, I start off my workshops with the same message, right? And regardless if I'm talking about developing resilience or suicide awareness or managing stress or increasing emotional intelligence, because I believe it's, for me, it's a foundational truth that I want to invite people into, right? And it's this idea that that and I'll speak it to you, but obviously this is what I say, but that when you were created, there was a light placed within you, and that light represents energy, love, hope. For me, it represents a spiritual basis, right? Where they say in Genesis that we were created in God's own image, that light was placed within you, and it has all your possibility and all your potential there. That your life's journey is to discover that and have it unfold in your life as you're discovering it. And of course, there's going to be things that are going to not want you to discover it, because when we discover it or on the journey of discovering it, we're going to be powerful beyond measure, because it's about helping other people. And
truly,
so there's nothing that we do to earn it, but equally, there's nothing that anybody can do or that you could do to make it go out. And if that's true, Kirsten, then the next time that thought pops in, when that what she said, maybe this truth is going to be stronger than that truth.
thank you. Thank you. And it means a lot. Like um, I've come a long way. I really do feel like um, I mean, I was just in my appointment with Sonia, not too long ago. And we just laughed because it was like, I said, Sonia, I have my toolbox and it's full. And she looked at me and she was like, it doesn't have to be a toolbox, because a toolbox can get full. She was like, there can be an endless amount of things to help you get through something. And that's when I said, oh, like a witch's purse, you just keep pulling things out. You keep pulling things out. And I've gotten to a point in my life where it's like, I get to those, I hear that voice or I hear that image, or like, I think of that negative thought, and I can interrupt it. I interrupt it with either a self affirmation, a positive affirmation, or Corey Whitford always told me, just interrupt it. I start clicking my pen. Um, but I have tools in my witch's purse that I know I know I deserve to be here. And I know I'm meant to be here. And I'm truly loving life more than I ever have the past couple of years. Just in the last year, I have truly like grounded myself enough to be like, okay, I am here. Tomorrow's a new day, but instead of looking at the past or looking in the future, I make sure that I enjoy today. Because as much as maybe she didn't want me to be here, I am here because somebody somewhere said, hold up, wait, I want you here. And I think of my biological dad who had found me when I was 16, almost it was like a month after that all happened. So there was definitely like somebody out there saying like, you're here for a reason. So I know that I'm supposed to be here. I say it all the time too, because people are like, "Oh, how did you figure it out? Like, what was the one thing, like you figured life out?" And I said, "If I had life figured out," I said, "and I knew every knit and grit or what tool to use for everything," I said, "life would be boring and I wouldn't have anything else to do." I said, "So as much as like I'm like, man, why did that happen to me? Why did I have to go through that? That's so annoying." I'm also like, okay, this is just another puzzle piece adding on to my actual puzzle that I'm building. So it's my journey and it's I'm writing my book still. Like it's still happening. Life is still going on, whether I get interrupted with those negative thoughts or not. I just have to choose how to react to it. And I have to choose to either let it simmer in me and become depressed and go into that dark space again, or I can choose to say, I'm here, like sorry. I'm I'm here. Go nowhere.
Yeah. Well, and I think about, you know, the idea behind resilience, right? And as an athlete, that we always dream of being a player or being on a team that is so dominating that they go undefeated, right? And I think there's something to be said, about that. Even the most successful dynasties, right? There, I think in NCAA wrestling, their Division I wrestling, there was only one individual in all the history of wrestling that went undefeated for 4 years. And only one individual regarding that. And to think almost everybody has some type of setback, has been part of their history, right? And that setback, when faced by a champion, is what then actually makes them stronger. And like in this case, like in your case, again, I think her making that comment is more of a reflection of her than it is of you, clearly, right? And regardless if she thought it at the time and then later said it again, it's more of a reflection of where she's at, right? And versus you, and the fact that you were able to continue to thrive in spite of that means there's a bigger message, right? There's a bigger, that the earlier story about being created with a light within you is more powerful than even the words that this person shared, right? And I think, you know the fact that you're doing the work that you're doing, not only professionally but then also from a volunteer standpoint, um not that you would ever compare your story to someone else's story, but your story has validity to allow someone to know, that what it's like to be in the darkness, and what it's like to gravitate toward the light.
I always say like, it's I don't know exactly where you're at, but I know how I felt, and it's like you always try to come out with compassion and but it's like there was growing up, there was somebody that was like, why do you want to tell your story? Why would you want to go into detail about your eating disorder? Why would you want to talk about your depression and your suicide attempts? And I remember looking at this individual and being like, because I know telling my story today is going to give strength and courage to another individual to open up and to bring that story up to them too. That I know that hearing my story is going to help another individual be like, well, if she did it, so can I. Because it's true. If I can do it, so can they, And I just, yeah, I love being able to. Don't get me wrong. There's days, like especially when me and Xavier do the mental health first aid. There are days where it's emotionally draining. Like I am just exhausted after, especially talking about suicide and going into detail about some of my stories sometimes. But I feel so uplifted and rejuvenated after because I know that even if it's touching one person, that story got through to somebody.
Yeah, yeah, no, 100%. And I know that, when I do my SOS talk, we talk about the 6 factors that lead to someone lead to someone being in a predisposition to the darkness. And we talk about sexual assault and bullying, and obviously mental illness, domestic violence, substance abuse. But, you know, I felt strongly that eating disorders and body image needed to be part of that because, well, one, it's part of my story, but it's also this idea that there's such, because of this individuals who experience this in their young adult years, right, middle school and high school years, it becomes so ingrained, in how we develop, that even if we're arresting the behavior, the mindset is like always just 3 steps away,
Yes.
and again, and you have to figure out how to have a relationship with food and how to have a relationship with the mirror. It's not like, and again, not taking anything away from heroin addicts or alcoholics, but you can have you can abstain from those things. And again, I know that it's a thinking issue, not a behavioral issue, right? But so are body image and eating disorders. And so it's not that one's worse than the other, but it is, cunning, baffling, and devious, that, the darkness will lie and distort everything. And as Pat Spangler will talk about it, the good idea fairy will come in and say, yeah, but we could try this.
Oh my gosh. I remember right before I went into Rogers Memorial Health, I had, when the doctor was like, you need to go get help. So they sent me to a therapist. And I remember, she saying, do you have are you suicidal? Do you have a plan? And I looked at her and I said, my ed, because I call my eating disorder my ed, solely because I know that my eating disorder is not me, right? This is this demon inside of me. But I said, my ed is the gun. My eating disorder was my way out. It's such a, unfortunately, right? But it's such a dark presence that you have over you. And it's one thing I talk to people when people, a lot of people don't understand it. I remember when, with my parents, like trying to grasp, like, just eat, just eat, don't do that. And I'm like, I wish it was that simple, and it's so frustrating, but it was, now I've gotten older. Like I try to teach parents too and other people what it is first before we go into trying to even like talk about tips of what to go about it, because you have to learn what it is first. Some people are like, that doesn't make sense, how do you not want to do this? And it's such a negative, dark presence, and it takes away so much. And I just remember, like, it was right before I had left for Rogers, like I had about six friends that came over before I went into Rogers as just like a little going away. And all of them kind of saying, like, I just want you to get better. And I was on that death row part, that I looked the worst I've ever looked. In my head, I didn't, but I know I was. And it just like, but those individuals being like, I don't know what's going on, because they didn't, but I want you to get better and I hope you do. I look at my best friend now and I love her for it. But she had no idea. We had no idea what this was. And to be honest, that was the first time I ever heard what an eating disorder was, which again, it's hard to talk about to younger kids, but it's something I wish I would have been told or taught. But my best friend, I've known her since I was 5 years old. She was with me through this whole journey. No idea what was going on, how to deal with it. I mean, she was my rock. And now I can look at her and she knows that there's some things that she doesn't want to say, because she doesn't want to trigger me, or she knows that my day, like, I'm having my bad days or I'm having my bad images in me. And she really learned what it was, and she learned about it through me. Every ed is different, right? I never always say everybody's ed is the same, because we're not. Everybody has their own ways of looking at it. But she she wanted to learn about it, and she understands it now to the point where like I trust her to talk to her about everything and anything, and she knows what to say, and I love her for it every day because I not a lot of people will truly like want to learn how to help you, and she was one, and I think that's part of the reason why I'm like I want to be like Taylor, like sorry, my best friend. I'm like I want to be like Taylor. I want to be an individual that's gonna help others too. So I applaud her, but I also applaud everybody else in my journey that truly like wanted to learn what this was. Because again, I didn't understand it either. I was like, why can't I eat this? Like, and my head was like, it was that devil angel, that fairy, like you said, it was like, let's do this instead. And it's like interrupting those negative thoughts. And now I have a shield on me. I call it my shield or my shell that like more like my shield, but I'm able to fight against Ed. And I battle him hard every day, every other day it happens. And, but I have my witch's purse right next to me. I got all the tools and letters that I need to win my battle against Ed every day.
I think of when you were just talking about that, Kirsten, it reminded me, when I started, I was a competitive athlete, football, wrestling, track, and then I got into bodybuilding, which my body image started long before bodybuilding started. But the bodybuilding aspect of or lifting weights aspect, then all of a sudden was part of the journey of going from invisible to visible. And then the fear of becoming invisible again became a very real fear. And I think, of that time period, my first competition, I was 15.
Okay.
And then I remember, I stopped competing when I was 22, and there's a long story about how all that came about. And I would have never stopped compete. I don't know if I would have stopped competing if it wouldn't have happened the way it happened. Like I had to have it happen that way, even though at the time when it happened, that is not, not at all, you know what I mean? Because it was pretty heart-wrenching. But it was years later. I mean, I had not even stepped foot into even watching a competition, let alone looking at a magazine or anything like that. And I remember, I remember one time, and this was when this was before the pandemic, because I've only been working out at home since the pandemic, just out of sheer convenience. And I remember I was at peak, and I remember thinking to myself, no longer at what I would say the far end of the dumbbell rack where the 150-pound dumbbells are. I'm no longer there. I'm down at the other end, right? Because I just am not as strong as I used to be. And I remember thinking to myself, because this is 2019, early 2020, thinking to myself, I don't think I it was the first time I allowed it to enter my mind that maybe it isn't about how I appear, physical appearance. It's what I do for people, what I do with people to help people, right? Meaning from a therapy standpoint or a teaching standpoint or running, at that time KP or whatever. And it was like I was just starting to possibly believe that.
Yeah. I
I was 51 at that time. So
that's why like what you just said too, it's like, you know, it mental health in general, right? But eating disorders too, because that we're heavy on that topic, but it's like mental health in general. It affects all ages, all individuals. I mean, we can see it as young as like, elementary school,
yeah,
but all up until, you're in the 50s. Like, it's like when I was in my Rogers treatment center, it was a strictly eating disorder center.
yeah.
But this lady, she was in her 50s. She was talking about her grandkids and everything, and it was like she was there. She said remember her looking at us and saying like, "I'm here for my kids and my grandkids." She goes, "Because I want to do better for myself, so I can be there for them." And it's even as I got older, like when I went back into the hospital, this individual said, "Well, I thought you were done with it. I thought you grew out of it." And I'm just like, again, the word recovered. When you break an ankle, does your bone recovered? Right. You can walk again. With mental health, with eating disorders, the word recovery is the biggest thing, because there's a journey, there's that road to it's on recovery, but there is no end in that recovery. It just keeps going because it's something that's always going to be there, and you have to keep recovering every day. But it doesn't matter what age, what gender, what nationality or culture. It can affect all of us. But I also, just like you, I also struggled with that. That I like I wanted to be very invisible. But then when I was visible, I'm like, oh my gosh, how do I look? Like, I don't want to. And it was just coming back to my identity crisis. And I truly think that's kind of where everything really, for me at least, stemmed from.
Sure.
I did, pretty much everything in the book, where I got to the point where I was working out so much and I was running so much and walking so much where it was like unhealthy. I did every corner of my ed hit me. But I agree with you. It's definitely like, it's not like how I look, or it's what can I do to help others, and what can I do to I I host a group every other Tuesday, self-love club, and every once in a while I'll get an individual that does struggle with an eating disorder, and I try to have a little one-on-one with them after, and I tell them every time, I said, I'm not a therapist. I don't have like this license to do this. I said, I've been there though. And every time I look at this person, I'm very honest and I'm blunt with them. Because honestly, I think that's truly what we as ed warriors need. But I don't want you to be where I was. What can I do to help you? Because I don't want you to be in that spot. I don't want you to have that feeding tube and wheelchair. I don't want you to have nurses checking on you every hour. Um, I will give them every tip, but I tell them, I said, this is what helped me. It might not help you, but this is what I did. Let's figure out something to help you, though. Giving them the tips and tricks, and but I tell them stuff that has happened with me. I try to be very I'm blunt about it, but I also make sure that sometimes I know that, like, it can be very traumatizing too, like for myself and others, like when I talk about certain things, like how bad I was. But I'm like, there is no, I always get it. There's no food clock, right? There's no Pacific time you need to. There's no Pacific weight we need to be at. There's no number. Somebody said to me the other day, I started working out at a gym, and they said, we got to do a profile on you. And I was like, what do you mean? They're like, we got to do like your numbers, your weight, your body mass. And I looked at him and I said, I'm not here for that. If you need me to, I don't want to know the numbers. I'm here to be healthy, and I'm here to be with my friend. I try to look at, I don't even call it working out anymore. I just call it exercise or movement. Um, because at the end of the day, our body just needs movement, right? It's to be loved on and moved, right? So I always try to think of that first before I do anything else. But I remember looking at the coach and being like, I don't need that, nor do I want it. But I was like, numbers do not define me, and numbers do not define you or anybody else.
No, Kirsten, I think you're 100% right. Not only on that right there, that numbers don't define you, and don't make you, but and also the idea that, on this journey of discovering, what's your purpose in life, right? And I think it's already, you're moving in that direction. It's unfolding in front of you, and just, even though sometimes it may feel like it's a door being shut, it's maybe the next door to go through, that to open up another room. So Kirsten, if there was anything that you wanted to share just as we wrap up, what's one thing you'd want, someone who may be listening to keep in mind or to remember?
You are enough, and every day I hope that you find self-love in yourself. I hope you find something to do to take care of yourself. Self-care is the biggest and best thing for you. Self-love is loving yourself, but self-care is taking care of yourself. If it's getting up out of bed and taking a shower, I'm happy for you. If it is literally walking outside and going for a walk, I'm proud of you. If it's calling a friend, I am proud of you. If it's just being alive today, like, I'm proud of you, and you can keep doing this and keep on keeping on. I believe in you. You too. I believe in you.
So Kirsten, if someone wanted to get a hold of you or get a hold of the Tommy Corral Foundation, what's the best way to get? We'll do a plug for Xavier and Tommy Corral Foundation. What's the best way to get in contact there?
So we have our Facebook, we're the TCMF, or you can look up the Tommy Carell Memorial Foundation. We also have our website too, which if you Google Tommy Carell Memorial Foundation, you can find us. My Facebook, I'm under Kirsten Mary. You can message me privately and I can get you the information. Otherwise, Xavier also has a Facebook as well. And I also have my phone number. I give out to my phone number. I mean, I can give it to you, Kevin, and you can, but otherwise, yeah, I would definitely say like our social media is his biggest thing. Otherwise, I have my phone number. You could also look up the Self Love Club too as well, the second and fourth Tuesday of every month at our TCMF office.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being with us. I really am grateful that Sonia connected us, and I've really enjoyed getting to know you. So thank you.
Thank you.
So for anybody listening, and if for some reason some seed was planted regarding that either yourself or someone else needed to hear this particular message that Kirsten was sharing today, definitely pass this episode along. You can reach out to the Tommy Corral Foundation or Shatter Our Silence or myself at Kevin at Four Corners 815. Again, thank you for being with us today, and I look forward to being with you next week.